Welcome back, guys. Hopefully you guys are having an awesome day and an awesome week. It is always a joy and a pleasure to hang out with the green anacondas, and this is what the episode is going to be on. I had a couple of requests to do kind of like a basic setup or a care video on them. So I know the green anacondas or the yellow anacondas are not everybody's cup of tea, and you love them or you hate them. I really haven't met anybody that, is an in-between type of a person on them. And it's super bright in here. I don't know why my camera's set on such a high setting. So it might be a little bit brighter than normal. But I have Pop-Tart out right now. I'm going to start off by saying that I am not an expert. I've basically talked to some people on the ownership of green anacondas, and then I've mostly just kind of have gone off of basically like experience. So you can see Mountain Dew up there kind of seeing what's going on. We will look at her shortly because I have two different types of enclosures for them. Eventually they will get, both of them will have the exact same setup. But the basic care on them, that's tough, because whether you're wanting to get a green anaconda or you already have one and it's a baby and you're just looking to see what you can do to make the experience better with them, there's not a lot of information out there on Google or the basic internet on different searches and stuff like that. And so it makes it really tough. There's a lot of myths. There's a lot of urban jungle legends about them. And most of the stuff that you hear about the green anacondas just aren't true. For instance, there is never in the history of anybody keeping records of being eaten by animals, nobody's ever been consumed by an anaconda. I don't even think anybody has been killed by an anaconda. Well, maybe. I think like 20 people have died from big snakes in America. I'm talking about since the 80s. So maybe one of them was a green anaconda. But you don't have to worry about getting eaten by one or anything like that, because it just does not happen. Two is they don't get as big as people say they do. I've been doing a lot of research on them. The biggest green anaconda that I have seen, and it was in a zoo, was 17 feet. And I think that was it was old. 15, 16, 17 years old. So they do grow very slowly if you feed them right, because they still are in the boa family. So she's kind of checking out the lens, which a lot of the snakes do. So she's super, super calm. And I've never had any issues with her. A lot of people have issues with green anacondas and their temperament and their attitudes. But luckily, I've been holding her as much as I could since she was a baby. She was born probably January, February, I think, of 2019, if not December of 2018. So I got her 2019, and I believe it was June-ish, around June. So I've had her for over a year, and I've learned a lot with her. And just because she's so docile and her temperament is so awesome, it's very, very easy to handle her. But I think if you have them as they're younger, they can do very well with you and not have really any issues. But we'll talk about caging, and then we'll talk about like heating and stuff like that. So since they are boas and they are from the Amazon basin, basically where you would find most regular boas, the BCIs, the BCCs, and all the other stuff like that, I keep her pretty much at the same temperature as my other boas, so they don't need anything special. It's always hot in the Amazon basin, so I don't keep any of my animals, I don't give them a cold side, I should say. It's always 85-ish degrees. It might drop or go up 1 or 2 degrees, but I never really go below 82 in the room. But since I do have her cage on the floors, and that'll probably be our first talking point, is the cages, I do have a radiant heat panel in here with her, because in the wintertime down on the floor, it's very, very difficult to get the temperatures to where they should be. So a lot of people, and I'm not judging anybody on how they keep anacondas or big snakes or anything like that, but a lot of people keep them in tubs or rack systems. And she's small enough. She's probably 4.5 feet, and she's small enough that she could be in a good rack system or a good tub with the water that she would need to drink and stuff like that. And it would be perfectly fine. But I noticed out of all the snakes that I own, the anacondas are the most active, and they do like to keeping an eye on Mountain Dew up there, because we don't want to lose one of them in the room, although they can't get out. But I have Pop-Tart, and this is going to be hard to show you guys because my camera does not zoom out that far. So she's in an basically an 8.5 foot cage. It's 3 feet deep and it's about 2 feet high. So most people keep their anacondas in 6 footers, 8 footers. I rarely see them go any higher than that. But of course, if you have the room or the luxury of owning something massive, 10, 12, 15, 20 feet, I mean, obviously your snake's going to use most of that area, and it would be a very nice display case to use. So I mean, obviously for any snake, it's probably bigger the better, but she works. It's working out for an 8 footer, and then we'll adjust as things happen. The only reason why I made this an 8 foot is because the PVC sheets come from Home Depot at 8 feet, so no reason to cut it if it fits in the room. I just left it. And then also for the Burmese, that's an 8 footer also. So temperatures in the anaconda enclosure underneath, I do have the radiant heat panel set. So in there it's at 80, well, it's 86. So it's 86 degrees in there on the probe, which is right there. I have a normal light, and then I braced the inside, so when I double stack another enclosure on top, we should not have any issues. So Mountain Dew and Pop-Tart are actually doing very well. So again, I've never had any issues with Mountain Dew. She did tag me one time because she went on my shirt sleeve, and I tried to pull her out and she bit me. So I guess shame on me, but also shame on her. But that was when I first got her, so she was itty bitty, and was itty bitty as babies are, and then she didn't know any better. But I do like to keep the bedding in with these smaller girls right here, because I noticed they love to burrow. So that's one thing that you guys can have. I mean, obviously paper works, but I found that substrate works very well, and they do enjoy the getting the time to burrow and stuff like that. So we can put, if Pop-Tart will go back, the hardest thing that I'm realizing with both of these snakes on owning them is the water source. So I think that will be your biggest challenge. This big tote right here, I just filled up with water, and so far she just soaks in it. I've noticed that they don't really swim, but most of the time they just lay in there, and they kind of prop their head up out of water. I would assume that's kind of like what they would do in the Amazon basin. They would, see, kind of like that. So I think they would, hang out by the banks, and they would wait for food, and then they would snag a meal whenever the time was appropriate to eat. And of course they would swim from side to side of the river. So right now, the water sources, this is what I'm using. I do have a siphon that I can bring the garden hose around to the window. I can siphon the water out without problems. Wintertime in Ohio, it does get down to the negative, so that's going to be an issue. But scooping all of the water out is probably what I'm going to have to do until I can get like a pump or something like that. I do see most people just keep big tubs in there. I mean, some people have 12-foot anacondas, and they just keep the tubs in there, and they can just soak. Like, they can't swim, they really can't move around, but they have enough to soak. And a lot of people take their big snakes to the bathtubs, and in the summertime they have different like kid pools, dog pools that they take them outside and let them swim and explore the backyard if they want to. A lot of people say you shouldn't force your snake to swim or force your snake to have the time that they need in the water, but sometimes we need to do what we have to do with these snakes. And owning them, I mean, it's tough because giving them what you would think they would need in the wild, we can't really give them, we can't give them a river, we can't give them a lake, we can't give them massive ponds. So we give them what we can to try to survive and thrive the best to our abilities in captivity. So I think we have to make do on some of that stuff. So it's probably not the best. I don't want to say don't own them, because I own them and a lot of people own them very well. But it's just very difficult to give them the water source that they need. I have noticed that if they're out of water for a couple of days, their scales tend to look like they're dried up, kind of like a dried sponge, which is weird. But I have seen people online where their anacondas soak in water for days and days and weeks at a time, and then they get water blisters. So some people, if they see their anacondas soaking, probably for 3 to 4 days straight, they'll take the water source out for a day or two, and then they'll put it back just so their scales can dry off a little bit, and then they don't have to worry about the water blistering as much. Luckily, I have not had that issue with either one of the snakes. I think they have enough room to roam in and out of the water as freely as they want to. So food source, I had a tough time with Pop-Tart. She loved quail. Luckily, I got her off quail within at least, I think it was 2 months. So it seems most babies that I see online and that I've owned are definitely bird eaters, and they can eat fish as well, which is what they would do in nature. They would definitely eat birds and stuff like that. So Mountain Dew is definitely a bird eater. We've seen her eat birds for months and months and months, trying to get her off of the birds. But since I have a freezer full of quail, she's just going to be on quail for a little bit until I probably run out of that. And then keep on trying with the rats, because it would just be so much cheaper and easier. But again, we do what you have to do for the best of the snakes. And I've actually talked to some people on Facebook and Instagram where they have 10-foot anacondas, and they eat birds and big chickens and rabbits, and they've never touched a rat in their life. So if you are looking to get an anaconda, just be prepared that they'll eat live or frozen chickens or quail. Quail has been the best bet for both of these, both the anacondas. And then of course for the tubs up here, I have her with substrate and a very nice area for her to swim. Again, I really don't see them that active in the water unless I take them out and put them back in. Normally they're hanging out in there with their heads propped up, looking out to see what's going on. So I don't want to make this video too long. I mean, Mountain Dew's not too bad on length. So you definitely could probably hang out in, maybe not a tub like this, maybe for a little bit, maybe like this for a little bit, and definitely one of those. I mean, even Pop-Tart would be fine in one of these probably for the next year. But I had the opportunity to get the PVC stuff from Home Depot. Just went ahead and made the cage for her permanent home. And the same will happen later for the second one on top. So they're both females as far as I know. I've checked them, did my best, and to me they're both females. I had a little run-in where I thought this one was producing sperm plugs through a shed. I think I miscalculated that. And the size of her, I mean, I definitely think she's a female. At not even 2, she's pretty large. So that's it, guys. I know this is super long. I know a lot of you guys don't like the anacondas, or you're not a fan of them. But if you guys have any questions about them, you guys can message me on either the boards on the YouTube page, or if you don't want people, chiming in, you can also find me on Instagram at Benson C Snakes, and you guys can private message me on there as well. So again, I keep them just like the boas. They don't require any special temperature. I do keep them on the warm side, 85-ish to 86, just like the boas. Water source, I mean, it is humid in here, way more than the the actual, you know, the boas. So when I stick my hand in here or my head in here cleaning, I can definitely feel the humidity on there, and they're definitely enjoying they definitely enjoy it. So I haven't had any issues with the humidity, have not had any issues with the shedding. And then again, so basically this is what she does. Both of them do. They just hang out just like that all day. And I think that's what they would do in the wild, pretty much. And so nice and calm. So I try to touch on their heads as much as I can. It's just so they can understand when they grow up, if me or if I try to get them in an educational group and somebody touches on their head, which you should not do on any animal, even a dog, you know, they won't just straight up bite you, which I haven't had any issues with that. But again, anacondas' temperaments, so I've heard, are very, very fragile, and they can be extremely unpredictable. They can strike in any direction. They don't really have any warning signs on them. Like, they don't make an S curve. They really don't hiss at you or anything. Like, they'll just snap at you and bite you. Luckily, I've not had that issue. So that's it on the basic care, and maybe some knowledge that a lot of you guys did not know about. So I do all this stuff by myself. I'm a little bit nervous when they get full grown, around 10 feet, because they're extremely muscular and powerful snakes. But I really, if I take things, the proper approaches on big snakes, I don't put them around my neck. I don't let them, you know, wrap around me crazy. Then I think I'll be all right. And I think you'll be fine too. 2 people would definitely be ideal. But I think if you're really smart about it and you're not dumb and you're just not like putting them over your neck, wrapping them around like a scarf, taking pictures with them, I think you'll be okay. I mean, they're not man-eaters. They're not out to kill you. They're not out to murder you. They're not looking at you as food. So, you know, a lot of people do take care of big retics, sperms, and anacondas by themselves, and they don't have any issues. So Mountain Dew is definitely curious about this camera, and almost all the snakes that I have are very curious on the camera. So, all right, I've rambled on and on and on, and we got to see some awesome anacondas. So I love hanging out with them. I mean, they're definitely a very unique snake. I don't know if it's because of the horrible legends and the myths, but holding them makes you kind of feel like Steve Irwin a little bit. But that's it, guys. Hope you guys have an awesome day. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. And, you know, I'm going to be feeding more snakes here in the next couple of days. And I don't know what's going on with the lighting. I'm trying to figure this camera out, but it's not doing so well. Hopefully it's not too fuzzy. But on that, I'll see you guys on the next video.